Hello everybody, and welcome to the fourth and final Rising Up webinar hosted by Asset Service Department Mews in conjunction with AltoVita. Today we are going to be talking about technology and distribution with a specific focus on the corporate travel market in the APAC region. Now, this series has been sponsored by AltoVita, and before we get into the nitty-gritty, we're just going to play a short video about them. So if you'd like to find out more about AltoVita, you can see their web address and contact details in the chat. So this session is going to last around an hour. Everybody other than our panelists will be muted, so we can run the session smoothly. We're going to have around a 50-minute discussion, and if any of you in the audience have got any questions, then please do submit them using either the chat or the Q&A function in Zoom, and we'll try and get around to answering as many of those as we can. Everybody who's registered for the session will receive a recording via email in the next couple of days. And we're going to launch a couple of polls shortly in the chat. And if you can just take a minute or two to answer those while the discussion is going on, we will look at the results of those at the end. So my name is George Sell. I'm Editor-in-Chief of International Hospitality Media. We are an online B2B publisher for the hospitality industry and a conference organizer. And I also seem to be losing my voice this morning, as this is the third webinar I've done in a short space of time. So forgive me if I'm a bit croaky today, but I'm sure we'll get to the end. I've got a terrific panel with me today, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves one by one. And we'll go from left to right as we see them on the slides. So let's start with you, Karolina. Good morning.
Hi, George. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to learn from all panelists. My name is Karolina Saviova. I am the COO and co-founder of AltoVita. And for those who don't know us, we're an enterprise software for flexible rentals and extended stays.
Thanks, Karolina. Bradley, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, George. My name is Bradley. I'm the Regional Vice President of SiteMinder for Asia Pacific, based here in Bangkok, which we've managed to turn the weather on for everyone. So working for SiteMinder, we look after hotel distribution technology, plug and play type software that allows hotels to attract more guests to their providers and connect them to more platforms.
Thanks, Brad. Carl, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carl Jones. I'm based in Singapore. I work for SAP Concur, and I look after our travel portfolio. That's our travel-related software products for Asia Pacific, as well as our investment and development strategy across Asia Pac. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. Aaron, welcome to you.
Hi, George. Thanks for having me. Yeah, my name is Aaron, based out of Hong Kong. I'm the founder of Dash Living. We're one of Asia's leading co-living operators. We operate about 2,000 rooms in Asia Pacific, presence in Hong Kong, Singapore, currently just launched in Tokyo, more cities to come. Our mission is very simple. We help millennials find more affordable accommodation, long stays focused, and our approach is to make real estate more efficient. We can talk more about that later, but yeah, our approach is basically make real estate more efficient, right? To be able to provide that affordable accommodation.
Thanks, Aaron. And last but not least, Joseph, over to you.
Hi, thanks for having me today. And my name is Joseph Lapka. I'm the product director at Mews Systems. And I have a background in corporate travel and distribution of 10 years in hospitality. And at Mews, we deliver a cloud solution to allow any property to manage their resources. So we focus on maximizing their real estate, basically, through our cloud software.
Thanks, Joseph. Now, if you look in the chat, you'll be able to see the LinkedIn profiles of all our panelists. So if you'd like to carry on the conversation with them after the session, then please do so. Okay, so let's kick off. Until relatively recently, there was a very clear demarcation between the corporate traveller and the leisure guest. But now we are starting to see quite a lot of blurring, leading to that horrible term leisure, which I don't really like. But there aren't now two distinct types of guests. Can the same distribution channels reach the two different audiences? And are you seeing more guests mixing both in one stay? Karolina, would you like to kick off with that one?
Yeah, I think that this is a really interesting question. I mean, certainly there's a certain number of trends which testify that this sort of mix could definitely happen. We're seeing the work from anywhere trend, virtual assignments, working from home, which would potentially allow corporate travelers to merge their stays with also a bit of leisure. I think that the technology, however, should probably evolve a bit towards filtering duty of care compliant options. This is really probably the number one factor. This is a factor for corporate travelers to book. So I would assume that probably the traditional OTAs would have to really be able to filter out great quality options only. And then I think that this trend could really potentially pick up.
Carl, please go ahead.
Thanks, George. Yeah, just to add to that as well, I think obviously over the past few years, particularly in the accommodation space, we've seen in corporate travel that employees like to book beyond the tools, right? They feel they can get better deals or for various reasons. They're trying to normally do it for the right intent, but they will use different tools, different OTAs, different sites. I think what we're going to find post-COVID is that practice really coming back into having a single source. To Karolina's point, it's making sure you know where your employees are, because organizations don't want to be sending people on or business trips anymore and really having no clue where they're staying, partly because of the duty of care and the responsibility aspect. So they want them to be staying in properties that they pre-vetted for hygiene purposes, but also secondly, they physically want to know where their employees are as and when they travel. We know here in Asia Pac as well, because of immigration requirements, really borders are still pretty closed and normal transient corporate travel is down 95+%. So, you know, there's that element. But I think once people come back, the clients we're talking to will almost certainly always ask, look, how do I track this? How do I get information to? So I think if people are booking outside of a platform, it's very hard to track them, to get information to them that you know is going to be accurate and purposeful for them. So I think that's a big challenge that we need to really think about.
Mm-hmm. Joseph, please.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think what both Karolina and Carl mentioned, the duty of care is a big item in this, and it always has been. You know, that this is why corporate travel is so strong across the globe, and it always has been, and it's been growing and growing, and it will only, of course, increase the side distribution channels that people try and use, but eventually the problems for the corporate businesses will remain the same. But with regards to the leisure and business travel, I think what's also important to remember is that you know, there are lots of views that we need to look at segmentation, and we need to understand the right segmentation. So when the ultimate guest comes back to the property, the property knows who they are, that they're traveling on business, or that they have shoulder dates around that group booking, or that they are there for two purposes. And that's, I think, something that's never been cracked before. We've managed to kind of crack the distribution side of it to a certain degree and offer different rates to different corporate travelers, with supplementing that through online travel agencies. But where we're then missing is the actual information coming back from the online travel agencies about who the guest is, to be welcomed in a certain way, and to be kind of handled differently to someone that's just there for business. Because I myself travel a lot on business, and I take my family whenever I can, basically.
Mm-hmm. Carl, you actually preempted my next question, which was that pre-pandemic, a lot of business travelers were what travel managers call going rogue, and booking their own accommodation outside of the employer-approved channels. So you obviously think this is going to be less of an issue going forward. But how can technology empower companies to offer a more dynamic travel policy which kind of adjusts to available options and also gives the buyer more choice? I mean, we know that millennial travelers now don't want to be put up in a traditional cookie cutter business hotel. How can technology enable companies to have a more responsive and personalized travel policy?
It's a great question. I think, look, I'd be interested to repeat some of those surveys on millennials post-COVID, by the way, and whether that trend and that behavior will be the same after the pandemic. But that said, let's assume it will be for now. Yeah, we certainly saw this element of fragmentation of content and content pulling in. I used to work for a travel management company, and we refer to it as hotel leakage. Right, so the number of bookings that did not have a hotel or accommodation option at the same time as the air ticket. And here in Asia Pac, you were getting leakage of around 80%. Right? Even with some of the more established organizations who have relatively strict travel policies, you were still getting very big double-digit hotel leakage, more than 50%. So I think it was a trend that lots of people were trying to change, particularly TMCs, because of this duty of care element. I think it'll always be there. I think part of the issue is people do want their own choice, and they do want that flexibility, and they feel, look, I can get a cheaper option. So, you're saying it's X amount per night. I can get a cheaper option. I'm doing the right thing by the company, by my travel budget. And that's well and good, but we still need a way of tracking that sales. That content needs to come into a tool and be able to be tracked as part of that booking. And I think that's the challenge from a TMC or a technology platform provider that SAP Concur is. It's how do we get that content in? And we normally obviously work with the TMCs, but it's making sure that the content comes in so that the choice is there. And then it's up to the corporate to filter what content they want and don't want. The final thing I'd just add to it as well, I mean, there was a hugely onerous process of hotel RFPs, which would take place every year. Anybody who's gone through them will tell you how lovely they are to look forward to, and also just having that data, and you agree a rate with a hotel chain or a hotel group, and making sure it was even in the GDS, and having to audit. It was a whole heap of problems. So I think we've got to try and move away from that somehow, but try and get this content in so people can select. The other, sorry, just one final thing to add, and I'll try and calm down a bit, is trying to make sure things like data around hygiene and cleanliness, those sorts of data sets that really haven't been there in the past. I think we're going to need those to be allowed to be part of the selection process, I suspect.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Carl. Aaron, from an operator's point of view, are you seeing an increased proportion of people staying with you for business, for projects and so on, who are coming direct, or which distribution channels are they coming through?
For us, we've always been having our own kind of traffic coming into our website. They book with us directly, so we rely heavily on a lot of social content, driving that traffic into our website. We have a lot of advertisement on Google, cost per click, this banner networks, a lot of things that we have out there driving that traffic over to us. The key for us actually is to keep the customer, because it's a renter's market right now. Well, first, we're focused on long stay, right? So it's a renter's market. So getting the customers through the door is really a lot of price kind of speculation for the customers, the renters market. So the key for us actually is to get the deal, get the conversion, and actually get them to stay. And getting them to stay is actually the key challenge, right? So how do you get them to stay, right? You gotta the way that we get people to stay is basically we increase engagement, maximize the kind of interaction. And by interaction, I mean like it should be on the mobile app, right? Not necessarily face-to-face, right? Face-to-face is by choice, right? Especially during the pandemic, right? When people are concerned about hygiene. So yeah, as much engagement as possible within the community, not necessarily only driven by us, but we empower them to actually increase their own engagement, right? To therefore actually have more engagement in the community, and the community actually drives the kind of renewals and the stickiness of the customers.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. I can see quite a few hands up here. Brad, did you want to come in on that point, or the previous one? Sorry, I missed your hand going up.
Oh, that's all right. Just coming in on the previous one, and something that Carl mentioned before around employees being known about what, or having their whereabouts known when they're traveling. And I think we really see two sides of it. There's corporate travel in the traditional sense, where we're asking our employees to travel for work. And that's where sort of one side of the whole leisure piece comes in, which, that the main purpose of the traveling is for work, and they're adding, pleasure onto the side of that. And I think we've seen that traditionally pre-COVID anyway. The other side of that, I think now we're seeing a flip in that, which is people actually traveling for leisure and working in the destination that they're actually going to. So, people might be going away for a weekend, especially in these domestic markets and domestic trips, and working remotely from, Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday, to tag on to their weekend. And I think, both sides of that are important for us to know where our staff are at any given time, because, the way that COVID can spike in certain regions, you want to make sure that your employees are safe. So I think there's two sides, which is, you can really control when you're sending your staff out to go and work. But the other side is making sure that you're able to easily track where your staff are, when they're traveling for their own leisure purpose as well.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. And Karolina, did you want to come on that point as well?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a bit more context from what we are seeing in terms of the distribution technology. Essentially, there's the business travel part. So where you stay somewhere for usually just a few days, up to maybe 14 days. So that part of the market is very much used to using live inventories, cloud-based technology. And then there's the part where we operate, which Aaron touched upon, which is the corporate extended stay market. And we really feel like that this is probably one of the few markets which still remains to be digitized. And we're seeing that basically the travel buyers are not the end users. So thereby they're using a lot of bidding tools, PDFs, which can take up to 72 hours to actually offer an option to the guests. So, we're seeing a massive opportunity currently at the market when it comes to distribution technology adoption for the extended stay market, because I would say the booking trends are really driving this possible adoption, and the guests, the end user essentially want to have a bit more control over the choice, be it when it comes to duty of care or having various options, and not just relying on the PDFs and the bidding tools and restricted amount of options which are then offered by the I would say travel manager or perhaps relocation manager and so on.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Karolina. Pretty much every hotel conference or accommodation conference I've been to where there's been a distribution session, for about the last 10 years, somebody has used the phrase, "This is the year of mobile." And I think from a millennial point of view, where they do everything on their mobile, it's second nature to kind of live using your device. But how important is the role of the mobile device in booking corporate travel? Do you want to carry on for a sec, Karolina, and address that one?
Well, That's a very tricky question, especially in our industry, because if the assignees tend to receive options precisely on those PDFs versus being actually able to go to a platform and book themselves. So it is a process which I think is about to change, as I mentioned. This is due to various factors like shorter booking windows. You need to be a bit more flexible. Travel changes all the time, the dates and the check-in days or the context. So I think that having a tool where at least the guest wouldn't have to actually instantly book, but at least be able to look at the live options would be something very useful.
Does anyone else want to come in on? Oh yeah, I see, Carl, you've got your hand up there. Wow.
Yeah, just to add exactly to what Karolina said there, I think number one, if you think about corporate, there's normally a lot more variables. So that tends to be an issue. The other thing we find, particularly in Asia Pacific, is there's a lot of countries which have some sort of pre-trip approval process. So actually going onto the hotel site directly requires some sort of pre-approval in the booking flow, and if everything needs to be on mobile, that needs to be integrated as a part of the booking process, and that approval process needs to go to your manager or whoever to get that approval, and that needs to flow through into the booking tool, and that needs to flow into ideally your expense process as well, so that you've got some way when you do your expenses to prove that the pre-trip approval was there. And I think the role of technology needs to see the booking process as that approval to reimbursement.
Yeah,
for corporate.
Aaron, did you want to pick up on that point?
Yeah, regarding mobile importance, you guys are all talking about booking, but I want to chime in a little bit on the post-booking experience, right? For us, actually, mobile drives a lot of value on the tenant experience while they're at the property. So I talked a little bit earlier about the interactions, the stickiness and things, right? So from our experience, actually, we didn't even have a mobile app like two, 3 years ago, pre-pandemic. A lot of the things we've built on our mobile app to drive that stickiness are such as things like door key, right? The door key is something that enables the tenant to be able to enter the room every day through Bluetooth. Actually, the check-in process is much smoother too. You don't even need to see the front desk, right? So that's a more hygienic, safer kind of option. It's way more streamlined, operationally efficient, right? So because of the mobile key, tenants are using that app every single day, which is they're used to using it. It's like our WhatsApp or Instagram or something, right? We actually just naturally just open it, right? It's just like the mobile app, right? So everything else, right? If you want to renew their stay or they have a complaint, they need to reach out to you. You want to get them to interact with other tenants, right? The events happening there, the bulletin board, redeeming perks, right? Things like that is all within the mobile app, right? That actually drives stickiness, and actually for I mean, if it's for booking, it might even be put within certain hospitality groups kind of a loyalty program, right? But for us, we're focused on long stay, so it's all about the engagement within the mobile app, where the mobile app is actually driving that factor, right? The interaction factor post booking.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Joseph, did you want to comment on that as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think all of these comments that I'm hearing, this is the problems that we're looking into and that we're evaluating on a daily basis. And it's so important to not just to give a flexible but coherent booking process, but a post-booking guest experience all the way from that person's sitting room where they booked it all the way to where they get into one of your rooms. And that is so important to make that really streamlined. And we're constantly evaluating these kind of challenges that we have with regards not just distribution, with regards to rates, availability, and reservation delivery, but what do we trigger next? How do we engage with the guests so they know? And there's nothing more frustrating than getting an app where you check in online, it gives you a QR code, and then you arrive at the property and they ask you, who are you? And you then have to go through the whole check-in process. And I think, there are so many tech solutions today that can provide this unified experience. and really drive it forward, not just for the millennials, but for anyone. You know, I would much rather just walk into my room than having small talk at the reception myself. But yeah, these are all kind of challenges that we see every day and that we're trying to find a solution to.
Thanks, Joseph. And Brad, I see you've got your hand up as well.
Yeah, I thought everyone else has had a turn, so I might as well jump in as well on this one. But look, similar to Adam, and I'll try and build on some of the points. But you know, I think especially when we start moving forwards into a bit more sort of cross-border travel, international border, mobile is going to play a huge part, because you know, we're going to potentially have, you know, vaccine passports that need to be presented. We're going to have proof of accommodation, etc. And having that all integrated into your mobile device makes it, you know, really seamless for you to be able to travel. And I think, you know, again, for the guest journey coming into your property, you know, check in, check out, I think that's probably the most talked about contactless arrangement that's been set up at the moment. But beyond that, you know, even just seeing examples of being able to order room service through your mobile device, you know, in-room activities or in property activities, booking spas, etc. I think there's a lot of integration happening around mobile devices within a property that makes, you know, the guest experience much better as well. I think it's just beyond, you know, making it convenient in a COVID environment and contactless in a COVID environment, but also making it extremely seamless for the guest experience as well. So I think it's going to be really important, you know, whether the booking initially happens on a mobile device or not. You know, I think we're probably going to be split there for a little while longer based on people's personal preference, but definitely, you know, everything that happens after the booking needs to be integrated into that mobile experience.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Joseph, if we can come back to you for a minute. When we first launched our service department news website and our events that went along with it, we spoke with quite a few service department providers and extended stay companies who found that traditional hotel PMS software wasn't particularly appropriate for their needs. Can you tell us how PMS systems have evolved since then, and specifically how they've evolved to suit the extended stay and service department market?
Yeah, definitely. I think I guess I can comment most from the news point of view, where the actual understanding of the property management system was then designed around the guest. So which gave us overall in future more flexibility in order to provide a property management solution that is a little bit more flexible. So that means that we don't fix it by rooms or by apartment or by a bed. There is a flexibility of resources. We see it as real estate. We know that it's really expensive real estate that the owners have, and they have to make the most out of selling that real estate basically at the end of the day. And that doesn't just kind of connect to the room types or apartment types, but also to time. So over the past year, we decided to really shift and enable hoteliers and service departments and our customers to be able to manage different times and different resources, basically. And we found that we needed to extend the time units from nights to up to months. And we actually, I think this year we'll be looking at reducing that all the way down to a minute. So you can really make use of every single piece of your real estate. And I think that's the true evolution of a property management system, that it becomes a property management system, not just a hotel management system or hospitality. Because if it's positioned in that way, that means that the owners and the management companies can diversify their business, which we found so important in the last year. The amount of hotels that have moved into long stays, the amount of hotels that have and properties that have moved into workspaces environments. So even the room gets booked out by the hour, so you can work from home or have that important webinar meeting. So it's not in your kitchen. All of that diversification is really necessary, and that to me is the real evolution of a property management system. and also to be able to cater to locals as well. You know, when we saw the decline of the tourism and corporate industry, you know, there was no way for hotels to easily sell their parking spaces or sell their rooms in a shorter period of time to locals that needed it. So I think that is the next step for property management systems, and to support all of the owners and managers of properties to maximize their real estate.
Brad, would you like to come in on that one?
Yeah, I think you know, Joseph makes some great points around the evolution. I think the other side of evolution, and you know, it was a topic that was talked a lot about pre-COVID, but you know, centered around data and having accessibility of data out of your systems. And I think that's become really important in the sense of guest communication. You know, property management system is really the cornerstone product at the hotel. You know, it's where all the information is stored in the hotel. It's where hoteliers can make decisions based on, you know, what's happening with their guests in-house or guests coming in and arriving. And I think what we've seen as being really important is the ability to communicate with your guests, and actually having that information available in your property management system and being able to use that data in a really useful way. So, you know, there's a lot of tools and apps out there that allow you to integrate and actually make that process less manual and more seamless in terms of actually communicating with your guests, but actually having the evolution of the property management systems to open up that information, make it accessible to, you know, other applications to be able to come in and actually work for the hotel, rather than, you know, just being a piece of information to know who's staying in which room and being able to check them in, check them out and do payments, etc. I think it's gone beyond that now, where, you know, we need systems and information available to communicate with guests and make those decisions. You know, whether you go into a lockdown situation and you need to communicate with your guests, either cancellations or restrictions that are in place, or actually communicating with loyal guests that you're back open again coming out of a lockdown situation. You know, those are really simple examples of that information being very useful.
Joseph, please go ahead.
Yeah, if I can add to Bradley's comments there, also the ability to get this type of information real time is so key. To be able to engage with your guests while they're there is really important, because that opens up a huge array of opportunities, from, you know, having more efficient cleaning services to knowing actually whether the guest is in the room or not, you know, whether they can have an early check-in, for example, because the previous guests have already departed. All of that information needs to be real time and as Bradley said, really available to every integration partner that wants to work with that property.
Thanks, Joseph. Aaron, from an operator's point of view, are you finding that the software offers available to you are evolving quick enough to keep up with the way you are changing as a business?
Yeah, a direct answer, yes. There's a lot of tools out there that helps us evolve. But to put this in the context, actually, there is no single, I mean, at least right now, what we see, right, there's no single PMS system that serves all of our needs. So we've built a foundation, which we call our PMS, but we've taken pieces of other PMS at different parts of the funnel. So there's, I mean, we call it CRM as well as PMS, right? So early, you know, pre-booking, right? How do we actually manage all the leads that come in, what the information we have? That's more about CRM. And how does that actually get passed on into that person pre-arrival and then post-arrival? So there's a lot of pieces like the communication tools, how we're managing the tickets, the complaints that may have, the communication points they have with our agents, and then actually even up to the renewals later, right? And how are they interacting with each other in terms of the events? What kind of perks they're redeeming, things like that. There's no single PMS that serves all those things, but we are actually pulling little features, and we're actually more about integration, right, between those different kind of tools that are out there. So to answer your question, are there a lot of tools enough tools out there? Yes, there's always a tool out there. We would never actually try to build everything ourselves. There's too many edge cases to be building our own PMS, right? That's Joseph's line of business, right? I mean, we wouldn't be doing that. But yeah, the key point here is just to take the tools out there to serve our purpose. For us, I mean, because it's not just one property. For us, it's more about connecting all the properties. There's, I mean, there's 2,000 rooms, right, in our portfolio. It's not one property. It's actually more like 200-300 properties, right? And some of the properties only have one room, let's say, right? So for us, you know, it's all about how to integrate all of the properties together and have them be sharing the same resources, right? A centralized kind of operations by us, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, we've got to 40 minutes nearly before the word integration was mentioned, which is a slight surprise because obviously there is a huge amount of technology available. But still not convinced we're at the stage yet where it all talks to each other properly. Brad, would you like to give us maybe an overview of where we are in that process and that evolution?
Yeah, look, I think, you know, our industries, and to Aaron's point, is you know, quite fragmented. So, you know, there is a tool for everything. You know, what we've got a duty of as technology providers in this industry is to try and bring it together. And, you know, relating back to that data point I made earlier, you know, the information is there. Hoteliers have that information. What we've got to try and eliminate is the manual work of actually moving a piece of information from one tool to another. And that's, you know, really where we're focused in on as a business, is trying to actually interlink a lot of these providers together. You know, we've released the App Store, which, you know, starts to bring in guest messaging, you know, third-party applications, and connect that into the property management system so that hoteliers can get that experience of actually being able to provide information, you know, cross platforms, etc. And I think we just need to evolve and continue to focus on that. You know, the fragmentation is a benefit to the industry as well, because it creates competitiveness. It creates, you know, innovation and people to come in and bring new tool sets, etc., into the industry. And I think we've seen a lot of that innovation happen through COVID. What we've got to be able to do is actually build ways where we can connect it all into, you know, single platforms, start to actually share the data across platforms, and create a more open tech environment. And by doing that, we'll actually make the right tools for the right, you know, situations. But it may be that they need to purchase a number of different products and bring them all together at one point, so that you get the best of both worlds. Because I think, you know, everyone's made the point here that there's no one provider that's going to do everything for you. Everyone's specialized in different areas. So use that to your advantage, pick the best of the best in that area, and bring it all together through, you know, integration and connectivity. I think we're coming down that road, and we're coming down that road very quickly, but we're definitely not there yet, and we're not as far along that path as what other industries are.
Mm-hmm. Staying with you for a moment, Brad, can you just outline briefly for us the role of the channel manager in the corporate travel booking process?
Yeah, so the channel manager essentially takes rates and availability and distributes that out to online travel agents, wholesalers, GDS platforms, you know, a number of different avenues where bookings can be made. You know, the most simplistic way is looking at, you know, a reservation with booking.com or Agoda, etc. You know, we're distributing the rates and availability out from the property management system typically. So we connect into Mews. They provide us with what the availability is for the hotel. Typically, they're setting the rates in that platform. That comes through to us. We push that out to the online travel agents. We're then bringing the reservation back into that platform. So, you know, we're playing that role as a background integration provider, connecting the online travel agents, corporate travel, wholesale markets, etc., all into the property, and actually doing a lot of the real grunt work in the background for them through automation and technology. So that's really the basis behind channel management technology. You know, we're trying to evolve that further than, you know, just integrating to online travel agents or corporate travel agents, and taking that further into other applications where, you know, there's upsell, you know, ability for a hotel. There's the ability for them to message guests, you know, providing messaging through Wi-Fi systems, etc. So trying to bring more of those guest acquisition or guest upsell services into the hotel and using the data to be able to, you know, fulfill the services there.
Thanks, Brad. Joseph, I think you wanted to come in on that question.
Yeah, and also what we discussed earlier, I think, you know, the most important part is to be open to integrations. I think that has always been my kind of target. I've been in hospitality for 11 years. I remember, you know, representing 1,500 hotels with my previous company, and always kind of in the background trying to hack together all the different systems that we should talk to each other to make life much easier, you know, from content distribution to, you know, the safety and standards that needed to be distributed for corporate travelers and so on. And what Bradley mentioned is absolutely right. You know, we should be able to choose the best from the best, you know, and SiteMinder, for example, does it extremely well, the channel management distribution. And we're really pleased that we can connect with that channel manager, because we would not be able to provide the same level of service as a property management system, because they are the specialists in that area. And every category has its own specialist in every area. So from the very start at Mews, the focus was just to open up the data and the API to enable anyone to connect to the data that they needed in order to fulfill the jobs that they needed to for their customers. And therefore, at the end of the day, delight the guest, whether they're a business traveler or a leisure traveler or a mix of those both. I really also don't want to say the term. You know, it ultimately, regardless of where the booking's coming from, it's about the guest at the end of the day, and that's where everyone should be thinking about of how do I make my software, my service, my delivery, my provisions work for the guests. And as Bradley said, the more open we are as an industry, the more competition there is, the more kind of drive there is forward. And therefore, again, the guests benefit out of it because they get a much better experience.
Yeah, thanks, Joseph. I'd like to ask you guys what you think the impact and the potential of AI is on the distribution system as a whole and your businesses specifically. Carl, would you like to kick off with that one?
Yeah, sure. I think take the easy one first, which is our own experience where we see AI coming in, and that's very much around some of the analytical side. Looking at predictive technology to analyze corporate data, travel spend globally, regionally, pulling in sources of data. So if you're a travel manager and you're looking at your program, you know, how efficient has it been? Could you have done different things? Airline choices and selection of suppliers, for instance, using the data to give you trends that you may not even be able to think, or it's very much a manual process with that insight now, which is a lot more challenging, because even getting the data accurate, as we all know, in corporate travel is incredibly difficult because there's just so many data sources, and then you have to wash those data, particularly in Asia, and try and get them into some sort of readable dashboard and format. So I certainly know and see that analytical aspect is where AI and ML will come to the fore over the next couple of years, which I get very excited about, and I'm a bit of an analyst myself. In terms of the distribution side, I think it's an interesting one as well. I mean, I think the panel has talked really well around sort of the standardization that's really required. And in theory, if we have that sort of standardization, where I would see AI being able to do is to be able to make smarter choices around a more fuzzy logic type of capability, rather than the cold cut. Is it on your travel policy? Is it not on your travel policy? So pulling in things that may or may not have been considered when a travel program or travel policy is being drawn up and during renewals. I think it is predicated on the fact that you need some sort of coherent platform to be able to do it. But I would think that sort of choice element would be where it comes through.
Thanks, Carl. And Karolina, how are you incorporating AI into AltoVita's offer?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question, actually, because our aim is to integrate these high density tools in order to get the right data and content. And there's millions of data points, from hotels to service apartment buildings, but also the unique homes, which are typically, I would say, well, private private homes, and that the quality there especially can be very variable. So you can have shared accommodation, but you can have investment properties, which are perfect for corporate travelers. So our view was to actually integrate potentially AI into our vetting process. Our vetting process anyways is very human-centric. So before we integrate a provider onto AltoVita, they need to anyways go through a two-tier quality control process on both the operational and property level. And that is entirely done currently manually by our hospitality trained team. So we were thinking about really using machine learning in order to do this vetting process, compare data points, for example, quality of light in an apartment, or whether they're personal belongings of the landlord in the flats, and really looking at the locations as well. So that's something that we're currently exploring.
Thanks, Karolina. And Aaron, does AI have a role to play in building management, perhaps in terms of energy efficiency and this kind of thing?
Not at the moment for building efficiency, but actually with AI, the way we approach it is it's basically a chatbot for us, right? Pre-booking and post-booking. It's actually, well, we have a chatbot. Her name is Allison. Allison is actually a robot. It's not a leasing agent. So Allison actually, yeah, she's been the most consistent, the most hardworking, she doesn't rest, right? She's the most consistent, most hardworking, I mean, her job is basically to push the lead through the, like later into the funnel, right? Basically when someone inquires through our website, her job is to push the lead later into the funnel, right? Especially with long stay, right? We need to, ask the other person some questions. If it's when's their move-in date, what are their preferences, their pricing, right? Yeah, so pushing them later into the funnel, and after the booking, Allison obviously works as a customer service agent as well. Her job is to basically, to make it simple, her job is to identify whether the other person's request is an emergency. Is something on fire? Are they locked out or something like that? Because if it's not, you don't necessarily need someone on site, right? That's making the real estate more efficient, right? You don't necessarily need someone on site. So yeah, she's supported basically by our Philippines team, where labor is much more cost efficient over there. Yeah, so it's supported by a Philippine kind of centralized kind of call center, where the AI is basically identifying emergencies where on-site people can serve if it is an emergency. So that's how we're applying it to make buildings more efficient. I guess the whole process to be more automated and efficient in that sense. Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Joseph, did you want to come in on that one?
Yeah, I think in terms of AI, what we've really found interesting are two major parts. Is one, to enhance the guest journey, as Aaron said, and things like being able to scan the passport, using your mobile phone and it detecting all your details and storing them for legal requirements and police reports and so on, without the old-fashioned, let me take your passport and go into the back office and take a photocopy of it. But what for me as a kind of distribution enthusiast was more interesting was some of the experiments we've done over the past year or so with actually loading content for properties automatically through taking pictures of the room to detect things like sprinkler alarms and how the doors are being locked and whether the window is lockable or not, and so on, and the size of the room and the size of the bed, and so because that is always a challenge for property owners, having to fill out all those difficult and long-winded questions for corporate travelers and then distribute them. So we've done some experiments on that. We're still experimenting around that. And also with regards to distribution, the automated mapping, to be able to detect that one room on your channel means the same room as on your property management system and your channel manager, to make that link so you can connect and distribute straight away. So speed to market of your property and your real estate to any channel is kind of the drive for us experimenting with AI in a more kind of configuration setup way.
Thanks, Joseph. So moving on from AI to an area of technology where I have to confess I'm completely out of my depth. What about blockchain and cryptocurrencies? What's the potential for them to be a regular feature of the corporate travel ecosystem? Carl, would you like to start with that one?
The nice easy one. Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that, George. So blockchain, look, I think one of the things I do think that we need to really get is some of the foundational basics right first. I personally don't believe that blockchain is the answer for a streamlined, consistent system. I think we've been talking about it in the industry for quite a while now, cryptocurrencies and blockchain, and really for me, it's how do we get back to some standardization of format, some standardization of content. I don't believe, in my view, that blockchain or cryptocurrency can repair that, right? Because it's not going to necessarily bring content together. I think that's the bigger challenge, to be honest. So I know we've not looked at it from an organization point of view in terms of the booking process and so forth. The only time it has come up recently is around things like health passport and verification of health passport information, which is obviously a very unique topic. But if I look at the broader element of distribution, personally, I don't think it necessarily brings any answers to some of the bigger challenges. But I will more than happy be proven wrong by any of the panelists.
Does anyone else have a view on this? Go for it, Bradley.
Yeah, look, I think it's a nifty piece of innovation, and I think it's probably been developed a step too early. But that's typically where a lot of great tech innovations start, and I think we will see some form of blockchain or cryptocurrency, whether it's in its existing form or something further developed down the line. I think people are probably a little bit cautious around it still. People don't know exactly how it works or how it's going to work for them. But I think in terms of the technology that sits behind it, it's very innovative, and I think it potentially will lead into better innovations down the track as well.
Yeah, thanks, Bradley. Karolina, did you want to pick up on that one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I just think that we need to put ourselves again in the mindset that the end users are not the buyers. So the buyers are the companies. So first we would have to go back to the basic and really convince the multinational companies to probably pay for travel in crypto. But I would just really like to highlight that probably the biggest problem that we're currently facing is very, very simple and surprising. It's still the integrations problem. So we currently operate in 165 countries, 800 different markets. And what we're seeing is that the property management software market is just so fragmented that just take one city and there's 10 different PMSs. Increasingly, they also have their channel managers. So which really creates an issue for us as an agent, as a platform to integrate this literally hundreds of them. So if we could have really a tool which, especially for the extended stays, would work and simply integrate all of these parties, or if we could see a consolidation in the market, I think that's probably looking at the need of the hour in our industry.
That would be the magic bullet, but how far away do you think we are from reaching that situation? Is it in development somewhere? Joseph, do you want to pick up on that?
Oh, specific to that question, I think we're getting closer, to be honest. I think with different companies pushing for open API, making it more available, that integration partners don't have to pay for actually connecting to the API, and the hotels don't have to, and the property service departments don't have to pay to use that connection, but actually they're using the system rather than paying a maintenance fee here and there for the actual integration. I think that's the right step forward, and it's pushing the industry in the right direction. So I think we're moving slowly in the right direction with that. Of course, there's fragmentation, and it will continue to be that until we can push more and more into that kind of open market, which then increases the innovation as well. And with regards to current cryptocurrency and blockchain, I just wanted to say, I don't regard it as something that needs to be done. I think there are some problems that can be solved with it. With regards to blockchain, the security and data breaches that we see across the world with the data that we're storing and how we're storing it, the major chains and groups that have been in the recent years, unfortunately, victims to those kind of data attacks. That's only going to push these type of technologies forward, and we need to be, as a technology provider, we need to be ready for that. And the other one, with regards to cryptocurrency, I think, again, looking at the problems in the industry, like how many transactions does it take to fulfill one booking? So you have a transaction from the guest to the agency, from the agency to the hotel, then from the hotel to a supplier, from the supplier then further, maybe then back in commissions to the agency. Every single transaction charge, when you're doing it using credit cards or doing it, in the old-fashioned way, let's put it that way, costs every time. Whereas you can streamline that through those through cryptocurrency or through those type of technologies, and that's where the real opportunity lies in the future. Yes, we're still early, but imagine that you could create a whole network that really simplifies how you get your commissions at the end of the day as a travel agent. So you don't have to wait 45 days on average, but actually you get it in 2 days payout, like the credit card companies like Stripe and so on do it. We shouldn't wait for that long. And as a hotel, you can lower your costs in terms of the transaction charges that you are faced with. So I believe that there is opportunity for our industry on all of those fronts. And as long as we keep on focusing on what we're trying to solve with that technology rather than just using that technology.
Fantastic. Thanks, Joseph. That is really food for thought. It's been a great discussion. Thanks, everyone. We're coming to the end of our time now. It's flown by again. Just want to very quickly run through the results of the poll of the attendees earlier. Question 1 was, are you personally feeling a pent-up need for travel coming out of the pandemic and quarantine? And an overwhelming 88% said yes. Question 2, are you planning to travel within your home country this year? 82% said yes. And perhaps most encouragingly, are you planning to travel internationally this year? And 71% said yes. So that's great news for the industry in general. So we are out of time now, I'm afraid. It's been great fun hosting these Rising Up sessions, focusing on the APAC region. The next big date in our diary is the 24th of June, when the Service Department Awards will be taking place in London in person. It's a live event, which we're very much looking forward to because we have missed seeing our industry colleagues. If you'd like to book tickets for that, you can see a link in the chat there. So it just leaves for me to say thanks very much to everyone for watching for the whole series this week. It's been great fun and really informative, I think. Thanks to AltoVita for sponsoring, and thanks today to Carl, to Karolina, to Brad, to Joseph and Aaron for sharing their experience and their insights. It's been a great session. Thanks very much, everybody, and hopefully see you all soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.